Blood Games is an action horror exploitation film that was released in 1990 by Tanya Rosenberg. This is her only feature that she's ever directed, and very interestingly directed by a woman because of the themes of the film and because it's going for that raunchy exploitation, sexy female thing, which is basically everything you would see in 80s slashers, but usually they would be directed by men, obviously, and you would have the men directing women kind of trope going on. But this is a woman directing woman, and it still has all those tropes that those 80s films had with the sleaze and the clear, like, sex symbol all over the screen kind of thing. So very interesting stuff. This, I believe, was completed in 1989 because there's a lot of sources that claim this film to have been released in 1989, but this film did not see the light of day until 1990. In the UK, actually, 1991. And then Vinegar Syndrome, which is a company that restores these long lost films, which I love, put this out in 2020, I believe. And we got to see it in all its HD glory. So basically, what we have going on here is we have this group of female baseball players. They're an all-female team. They're called Babe and the Ball Girls because the lead character, or I guess you could call her the final girl, even though there's a few final girls in this film, is named Babe. They go against the boys, essentially. They have this boys versus girls baseball game on the birthday of one of the guys, actually. His name is Roy. And he has this like hard-ass dad who's, been in the Vietnam War. This guy is tough as nails kind of thing, and, very stereotypical brute male character kind of thing. And the coach of the girls, his name, did I even get his name? I thought his name was Babe, to be honest. I thought it was Babe and the Ball Girls, being that Babe was the coach and then he has his team of girls, but I don't remember the coach being named. But regardless, he makes a bet with this guy, the father of Roy. The father of Roy's name is Mino Collins. So the coach makes a bet with Mino Collins for $1,000 that, the winner of the game gets $1,000 kind of thing. And the film opens up with the baseball game. You get... My first thing that I wrote down on my notes is butts, because the focus on the chicks' asses are just constant while they're playing the baseball game. And you always get like the shots of them bending down with their skirts, and you can see like their pantyhose and panties underneath and everything. The camera will always be focused on the girls' asses. It's kind of funny. And of course, lo and behold, the girls win. So this totally sets off Roy, but especially Roy's dad, Mino Collins, and the coach is basically like, a bet's a bet kind of thing. You owe me $1,000, essentially. And then there's a scene where he pulls Roy aside, his son, and he's like, "This game just cost me $1,000. Cost me another $500 to get those bimbos out of here." And then Roy makes a comment like, maybe you're just so hard on me because I'm too much like mom or something like that. And he pulls Roy and he's like, "Don't you talk to me like that, son." "You're my boy," or something like that. It's just ridiculous. Everybody usually overacts, but it's not to the point where it's too like comical or anything like that. But you definitely get the 80s, late 80s, early 90s kind of overacting tropes often. The game, a lot of scenes in this film are kind of done in slow-mo-ish to, add like, whether it's tension or dramatic effect kind of thing. One guy gets a baseball to the balls. and the guys play really rough with these chicks. Like, they play as if they were men themselves. One guy elbows a chick right in the face, and throughout the whole film, she has like a shiner in one of her eyes, and like her mouth, her lip is cut and whatnot, because this guy just literally elbowed. And these guys, not only do they play rough, but they also play cheap, and they also play like dirty. So it's not the fairest baseball game to start off with, like, aside from the whole bet or guy versus girl thing. Then there's a shower scene where all the girls, again, you know where this is going, all the girls are taking off their tops and it's getting all sexy and it looks like Porky's style, except not comedy. And the girls are like giggling with each other, and then you get this guy come into the shower, and he's from the other crew, the Minos crew. And he walks in slowly, but he starts to hang out and chill out, and then he starts to like put his hands down there, and he's just watching these chicks and like licking his lips and everything, and just being a complete pig and pervert. And then one of the girls comes along and sees him, and she like gets behind him and she gets the upper hand and she like gives him a chokehold or something like that. And all the girls gather around this guy and like drag him to the shower, and then the coach comes in, and the coach has this like jokey relationship with everyone because they all love the coach, and the coach is like not a dirtbag. So he comes in jokingly, he's like, pervert coming through. And then one of the girls, Babe, the leader, she's like, oh, she mentions like, oh, dad, or something like that. And I'm like, dad, that your dad comes into the showers while you're all naked and changing, and just hangs out with all the chicks, including his daughter. That's kind of fucking weird. But but he sees that these girls are getting a hold of this guy, and he recognizes the guy, and this is the guy who was supposed to come pay him the $1,000. So instead of just going to the coach and handing over the 1,000, he goes into the change room, and for whatever reason, to peep on chicks, obviously, but doesn't really make a whole lot of sense why he would be there other than to be a pig, which is, that part's clear. So he shows up, I think, with way less than what was owed. So he has only like a few $100s, and he's like, well, that's all Mino gave me, blah, blah, blah. So the coach is like, yeah, fuck this. So later on, they go to this dive bar that Mino and all his crew hang out at, and the girls go in their bus. They have this huge bus that they tour in, and it says like Babe and the Ball Girls beside it. So it's like an official baseball team bus kind of thing. They take it to the bar. The coach goes in there looking for Mino. Mino and the coach have a conversation in the bathroom, and then it turns into a fist fight, and then the coach gets the upper hand on Mino and ties him basically to the toilet and shoves his head into the toilets, and then his head is like soaked in toilet water, and he's tied up to the toilet, and like closes the bathroom door, and he's like, yeah, basically think about the bet that you made me. And I mean, a bet's a bet, and I will always say that. And when you shake on a bet, like, as a man, you should always respect your bets. And this guy is already showing his colors on being a pussy and being like a fake tough guy, because he can't even honor the bet that he made with the coach, whether he won or lost. But like, he's obviously pissed off because it was his son's birthday, and he's not a man who likes to lose, and clearly he's in war mentality, essentially. But a bet's a fucking bet. I'm still pissed off at a bet that I made and won and never got paid for when I was like 16 years old. And even then, I was honoring bets. I'm like, hey, we shook on this. A bet's a bet. You owe me money. But I never saw that money. But lesson to be told: it's a manly thing to do to honor your bets, whether you're a man or a woman. It's a loyalty thing that should be always honored and respected. So Mino Collins is a lowlife, but we all know this from the beginning of the film, and of course, as the film goes on, we know this even more. So this guy comes into the bathroom, and for whatever reason that is completely not explained, he's blowing up condoms. And there's condoms blown up in the bar area too. I don't know why. I guess they were using them as balloons for the Roy's birthday, maybe. I don't know. But this guy just walks into the bathroom and blows up a balloon, and then finds Mino tied up, and she's like, oh, holy shit, Mr. Collins? Just continues blowing up the balloon. And the girls show up in the bus. They're all in the bus, but two of them decide to come see what's going on because the coach is taking a long time inside the bar. And there's these other two guys named Holt and Roy. And Holt and Roy begin to harass these two girls that came out of the bus. And you have your first like SA scene where they start to really take advantage of these girls and start to really harass them. And then somebody comes out with a baseball bat and starts attacking the guys and like protecting the girls kind of thing, and they all end up getting in the bus. They take off with the bus. They're trying to get away, including the coach, who was also stabbed at this time. I forgot about that part. I'm pretty sure it was Roy that stabbed the coach, and the coach had like this severe wound on his belly, and it was like borderline bleeding to death. They're all in the bus though, and then they start to escape, and Roy and Holt get a hold of some rifles, and then they go into the alley, and the bus is coming down, and Roy ends up shooting the driver of the bus, which is one of the girls. I think her name was Eliza, and Eliza gets shot right through the head. So you have this brutal death right there with one of the girls. in the first act of the film. And then obviously the bus loses control and smashes into the dumpster. Roy was behind one of the dumpsters kind of in between them, so the bus crashes into the dumpster and smashes Roy, like completely annihilates his bottom half. So you just see his head like spewing blood and everything. Holt goes get a hold of Mino, and Mino comes out and sees his son dead, and then he basically is like, I'm gonna give all you guys $1,000 for every girl dead. Don't bring them back alive. I'm like, $1,000 for each bitch dead, really? You can't give 1,000 for a bet that you lost the game to, but now you have a bunch of other $1,000 lying around for each dead girl. Okay. I don't buy it, but all right. So from there on, it turns into this basically like Rambo, except instead of one macho dude, it's a bunch like a team of ball girls, and instead of like the whole small town police force, it's these like hick gang baseball players kind of thing. The bus ends up in the forest because they're trying to escape town, and there's a roadblock from the crew, Mino's boys or whatever. They're completely blocking the road, so there's no exit. And the girls take the bus into the forest, and I really like the lush forest scene. It does give me a Rambo vibe for sure. And it's just a cat and mouse, like the dudes trying to hunt down the chicks, and you got like archery going on in here, especially with Mino. His weapon of choice is a bow and arrow. You get a lot of sensitive, disturbing elements with this because the director Tanya Rosenberg, she sure doesn't hold back with being exploitive. Like, she had a vision for this film, and this film was not going to be tame whatsoever. I would love to have an interview with her. There's 2 interviews in here with 2 of the cast members, but not with the director. But it'd be interesting to have her explain a lot more what her purpose of creating this film was, because outside of an exploitation film, I don't really, and of course like girls being badass and girls giving the men a taste of what they are always doing to them kind of thing, like make them the weaker sex for an hour and a half, however long this film is. But outside of that, I would kind of want to know why Tanya Rosenberg decided to make this film, essentially. What was her reasonings kind of thing. The men are really completely made to be absolute dumbasses, but hilariously. This is not a film where you look at it like men bashing. This is a film where they take the worst pieces of shit and actually legitimately make them stupid, where you're like, like, every guy in this film deserves everything they get. There's a scene where like the guys are just having this stupid ass conversation like complete hillbillies, and they're drinking beer and they're crushing the beer on their heads, which is so stereotypical. And even one of them takes a full can of beer and crushes it on his head and then opens it, and obviously it just foams everywhere. So it's just like these guys are literal like Neanderthals. It's just on the nose with how stupid these dudes are. One of the guys is like, you drink beer like you piss. The other guy responds with like, you piss where you drink beer. And it's just like, and they all got like scruffy beards, and one guy's wearing a hat that says the check is in the mail or something. It gets really, really ridiculous real quick. I love how, I think Babe is the one who starts driving the bus afterwards. She sees like a gas station ahead, and she's like, I think there's help ahead. And then it cuts to the gas station, and this gas station, it couldn't look more abandoned. There's nothing going on in this gas station. It's a shack with a sign, and there's no sign of anybody anywhere near it. It looks like this thing has been abandoned for decades. And this girl's like, I think there's help ahead. It's like, yeah, I doubt there's help at that gas station, sweetheart. Unless you're just looking to hide, I don't think there's anybody there that's gonna help you. I'm sorry. I love the one scene where one of the girls decides to get completely naked and lie on a rock and start to like, she's faking it, but she was like tanning or something. Like, she wanted to lure the guys, obviously, so that the other girls could be hiding in the bushes and stuff, and end up going behind the guys and either pushing them off rocks, or one guy gets hung because one of the girls ties a rope around his neck, and she has the other part of the rope ready on a branch, and then she pulls it and he literally gets hung, essentially, to death. We've already established that these guys are idiots, but they should know that realistically a girl wouldn't just decide to lie on a rock and get a tan while she's being chased, and all these guys are after her to like murder all these chicks. So the last thing they would probably want to do is get a tan in the sunshine. But like I said, they're dumbasses, so they obviously fall for it. All of them do, and then they go on the rocks and they start looking at the girl and they're like, like fucking Neanderthals, like, yeah, oh my god, she's so sexy. So I love one scene where you have a bunch of dudes, like there's like 10 of them, and then they commit friendly fire on. Oh, there's so many names here. Holt. And Holt is in the bushes. He's like, "Stop firing! It's just me!" And they're just going at it like they think it's one of the girls. It's so stupid. You do have an intense rape moment in this film. One of the girls gets, the guys get a hold of her, and she gets completely ramsacked from behind, and it doesn't show it like exactly like it's staged, but that's probably the scene that most people, if they're going to have a hard time handling something, that's going to be the one. And it's shown pretty graphically, like, and to top it all off, not just does she get violently assaulted from behind, she gets saved eventually, or she gets saved pretty quickly. And when they're taking off, she also gets shot in the back and then bleeds to death. So there's a bunch of girls saving her and then running away, and there's like 3 girls with her and 4 in total, and they decide to shoot her, the one that they just assaulted. So there's that to top that off as well. There's one instance where the girls are being held at gunpoint, and one girl comes from wherever she was. Her name was Mickey. Yeah, her name was Mickey. She shows up, and then one of the guys is able to grab her and use her, with a gun to her head and saying, kind of telling the girls to put their own weapons down. And this girl, Mickey, who's being held by one of the guys, she gives a baseball hand signal, like something they use in baseball to tell the person where to throw the ball or whatnot. I don't know if the guy just doesn't see it, but she's doing this symbol like down here. It actually looks like she's fingering herself because she does one of these things like in her crotch area, and then she's like signaling to the girl where to throw a rock kind of thing. So one of the girls grabs a rock and is able to toss it directly at the guy's like forehead. She gets away, and then the girls get away. And this film ends in its climax basically in this seemingly abandoned farm, and then there's a silo, and there's a fight between Babe and the main guy, the main honcho villain, Mino Collins. It was suggested that he was killed in the forest because there's one scene where he either gets shot or stabbed, but he's bleeding, and then he falls down. We don't see him for a while, but then we see him show up at this abandoned farm again with his archery, and he's hiding up on top of this like second floor of this abandoned shack, and Babe walks in and she sees blood dripping, so she knows somebody's up there, and he's up there like with the scope and targeting the girls with his bow and arrow. Then we have Babe and him fighting on this ramp that's leading to this silo, and they're like doing the whole punching and kicking thing, and then eventually they get up there, or Babe gets up there, and she hides inside the silo, and she's hanging onto this chain, and then when Mino gets in there, she swings with the chain and she kicks Mino down to like the bottom of the silo, and he falls and he breaks all his bones and all that. And the film ends that way, and it ends with this montage too of all the characters who had passed away. And of course, you have some casualties. You have lots of casualties. I think there's 4 in total. Unfortunately, the coach died, and yeah, I mean, it's unfortunate for everybody, but after he got stabbed, they basically had nowhere to take anybody who was injured to get medical help. So the coach just ended up bleeding to death in the bus, and it was very like anticlimactic. And there are a few deaths that are very anticlimactic in this film. The girl Eliza, who was driving the bus in the first place, when she ran into Roy, that was completely anticlimactic and very sudden and quick. But with the coach, like, he didn't get an opportunity to even like protect anybody or be heroic in any way. Like, he just was left in the bus with nowhere to go, and unfortunately he didn't get medical attention in time. He just bled to death. And he was he was a very likable character because he was the one guy that was so different than every other guy in the way that they were portrayed in this film. Like, he was the one guy who would do anything for these girls, and had that great relationship with all these girls, even though it was weird when he went into the shower and knew his daughter was in there. But he was like the one big-hearted guy amongst all these other crazy hick assholes. So overall, I really love the style of this film. I love how it's, I love the forest setting in the second half of this film. That whole like boys versus girls aspect to it, and how this crazy ass situation escalated into what it was. This film starts off as like this whole sore loser battle between these guys versus these ball girls. But then it turns into a vengeance film of death when it comes to Roy being killed. And oh my god, I love the story that Holt and Burns, sorry, give Mino when Mino comes out and sees Roy dead in between the dumpsters, and they're saying like, the girls just came out with baseball bats and they started attacking us, and then they all got back in the bus and then they just ran into Roy. It's like, yeah, okay, just leave out the whole sexual assault. Just leave out the whole part where you interrogated the girls, like dragged them into back alleys and started ripping off their clothes. Just skip over that and just say that the girls came out and started attacking you for no reason whatsoever. No reason. But yeah, it's a really cool film. I think this is a really cool film. I watched it on Tubi originally. I actually first discovered this film from 22 Shots of Moods. Shout out to 22 Shots of Moods and Mood 616. It's a channel on YouTube that I discover most of these unknown films kind of thing, these exploitation films. Mr. Parka as well is a very good one. I wouldn't have heard of any of these films that I discover, like this one, if it wasn't for Vinegar Syndrome themselves and Mood 616 and Mr. Parkas. So they cover a bunch of these. And then I heard this one on 22 Shots of Moods, and I had known that Vinegar Syndrome had released it. And this is the thing that I always wonder if I should blind buy more often, because so often I'll see Vinegar Syndrome release a film and I'll be like, yeah, I'll that seems cool, but I'll wait on it. And then a few months will go by and I'll either see somebody review that movie or I'll finally land on the trailer of that movie and I'm like, oh shit, Vinegar Syndrome released this like a couple months ago. Let me see this trailer, and I'll be like, whoa, that looks amazing. I gotta jump on that immediately. And then I'll go back, but at that point, like, they'll either be like the slipcover will be missing, and then they'll only have like the standard version available, and I'll be like, fuck. So it really makes me wish I could just blind buy everything from Vinegar Syndrome, but unfortunately that would be in the thousands and thousands of dollars, and I'm not that financially stable to be spending thousands a month on films, unfortunately. I hope to become one of those YouTubers who's just sent a bunch of free shit, but that will just remain a dream for now. But yeah, point being, kind of got sidetracked there. I watched this originally on Tubi, and then I'm like, yeah, this is fucking amazing. I need to buy this film. And the slipcover was already sold out at that point, so I had to resort to eBay. And I finally found a decent enough price for this film on eBay to purchase it. And lo and behold, now I own Blood Games. So it's fun. It's a unique film from this perspective. You don't see too much from like a group of girls perspective kind of thing. And as I mentioned before, think Rambo, but with a bunch of hot chicks. And instead of the police force, it's a bunch of rednecks. And a lot of the, like, pretty much all the cast, I don't know if they're supposed to be playing people in their early 20s or even teens, but I would probably assume they're playing 20-year-olds, but they certainly, like, all the cast in this film, the guys and the girls, look older. Like, they look like at least 35 or older. Like, they all look like in their mid-30s, most of them, and then some in their late 30s, even early 40s. So I don't know if they're supposed to be that age or if they're playing younger, which is a trope that happened all the time in the 80s. But yeah, every cast member, there's no actual 20-year-old cast member in this film that looks like they're in their 20s. Maybe they are, but I don't know. All I know is that it's a cool exploitation, very grindhouse feeling film. I would love to see something like this at the drive-in. It has that vibe. It has that 80s grainy vibe. I love that. And the plot is very unique compared to, like, I haven't seen a film of this caliber ever, I don't think. If there's any others, let me know. But These are the kind of films that I like to stumble upon. So I've talked long enough. That's Blood Games. Go check it out. I'm pretty sure it's still on Tubi. But go buy it and go support Vinegar Syndrome because they are fucking awesome. Subscribe to Morgan Film Fan if you like to listen to my voice or if you like my film reviews. I'll be back with more soon, so stay tuned for those. Check out what's on the channel already. Stay tuned for what's coming. Until next review, have a good one. Take care and cheers.